Hello friends, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I've got a Frugal Friday tip for you, and I don't know if it's necessarily frugal. I think the supplies are pretty frugal, but the most important thing is that these are supplies you probably already have. So we're going to mix it up. We're going to do something new, something I haven't seen other people do. They probably have, but it's new to me, and it was one of those, I was just thinking, what if? What if I did this? How would it work? And the what if is combining stencils and alcohol markers. And you're probably thinking, Lindsay, why would I want to combine stencils and alcohol markers? Well, one reason is because it gives you a really great way to practice your alcohol markers, and stencils are cheaper than rubber stamps, and you can make some cute little card fronts like this and save yourself some money and get a little more use from the supplies you probably already have. And also, I really wanted to buy these Martha Stewart self-adhesive stencils. They were $1 at Ocean State Job Lot, and I needed to justify the fact that I was going to buy more stencils. So I said, well, I am going to figure out a cool way to use these in a card or something, and then it just kind of hit me because I had received these markers to review, and then these are cheap markers. These are like 80 markers. I think they're like 25 or 26 bucks, and but they're they're run-of-the-mill markers. There's nothing special about these. I'm sure you have some similar. You could use Sharpies, but I thought, oh, let's see how these really inexpensive markers will work, because a lot of people have inexpensive markers. We start off with them to learn, and it's a great technique to use with them. So here's some examples already done to kind of spark your imagination. And this was the first one I did, and it was a lot of fun because I was just kind of playing with the idea, and I used this stencil right here. So these are self-adhesive. They come with the backing on them, and then you kind of cut them apart, and then you can stick them on a little sheet. Martha Stewart still makes these. There's some on Amazon. You probably can find them in your big box store. These are probably discontinued because they were $1 at Ocean State Job Lot, but I just stuck the stencil on the paper, and I colored through the stencil, and then when I took the stencil off, I just kind of freehanded in a little checker tablecloth and a background, and then I outlined it with a black pen just to give it a little bit more of a look like a rubber stamp. You don't have to do that. It's totally up to you. I also highlighted it with a white gel pen, and I used a little colored pencil on the edges. On this one, I did my cupcake, and then I went in between on what would have been the white lines, and I'll show you the stencil here. So right there where we would have had the white lines, I just went in with the darker colors, the darker red from the flower, the darker teal from the icing, and I went in and just kind of darkened it up. I also went around it with a gel pen, and then I wanted it to be sitting on a table, so I took this stencil by P&M Studio, and I just laid that down and kind of held it in place. I think I used a piece of, actually I think I took a piece of post-it tape like this and just kind of stuck it down like that and colored over the stencil. And then that left me with like a very dainty design because it's a pretty dainty stencil. I would recommend putting some spray adhesive on the back of your stencil, and then I just free-handed the background in there. And on this one, this is a really fun technique, so it's something you can do very, very easily with stencils, and that is masking. So what I did here was I took my macaron stencil, and these were all from the same set, so that's kind of fun because you got so many. For $1, I made these 3 card fronts, and I still have other stencils I haven't even used yet. And I figured I could foil or stamp a big like greeting there if I wanted to. I just really haven't had much mojo for making cards, so I'm like, I'm just gonna share this idea. You guys can do whatever you want to do with the idea. But what I did here was I stuck my stencil down and I colored those 2. Then I moved my stencil, and then I colored the next 2, but I just didn't color over where I had a previous macaron. And I did that all the way across until I had all of those beautiful macarons. I outlined them in black and then did some white highlights. I used the grays in the set just to do a little shading. Very easy. And then I thought I would try one without using the coloring in the lines, leaving the lines just white. And that's what we have here. And I think because this is kind of like a complex design with lots of stuff going on, it worked really well. But you could go in and fill in those white lines in between if you want, but I thought it was kind of nice how airy it was. First time you use your stencils, they might be kind of sticky and they may rip your paper a little bit. Mine did there, not a big deal. So if that's bothering you, you could stick the stencil on your jeans or a t-shirt or something to pick up a little lint so it's not quite so sticky. But you do want it to hold down in place so you don't have to worry about that when you're coloring. So I thought we'd do something kind of simple. I've got a piece of cardstock right here. This is my Nina cardstock. I've got 3 markers. I've got like an orange, kind of a dark orange, medium orange, and a kind of a dark yellow. I'm going to zoom in and hopefully my camera will stay focused. And the stencil I'm going to use is going to be one of the flowers from Martha Stewart here. So from this set right there where I got that bigger one. And I'm just going to snip off the stencil. So when they come, they're like just barely connected. So you do need to cut them apart, and there will be a backing, and you might not realize there's a backing. And I think the reason they have the backings on, which it makes sense to me, maybe you don't want a self-adhesive stencil and you could just leave the backing on. Like maybe you want to use it with like a gel press, or you want to use it with something where you don't want the sticky on there. Maybe you want to use it as an embossing stencil and use it in your die cutter. So I can understand that. So if you think you want to do that, you might not want to take your adhesive off, but I do. So I'm just going to peel that back. And then we've got our pretty stencil here. Now you could do the masking technique like I did with the macarons with this. And if you want to do that, you might have one in the middle and then you might put one on either side. I'm just going to stick that down like that. I'm not using a lot of pressure. And now I'm just going to start coloring. So what I typically would do here, I'll do just the center yellow. See, you're just coloring, just filling it in. Then I'm actually going to peg the caps and leave them uncapped. Are we still in focus? Because yellow is an easy color to blend, I don't feel like I need to do anything. I don't need to prime it or do anything fancy, but obviously you can practice however you like. I'm going to start with my darker color, and I am going to add that in. So this gives you really nice blending practice. I'm going to go with my medium color, and I'm going to color over the darker color and bring it up. I want to get rid of the line and take my lighter one and blend it out. I will show you the priming technique though, just in case you're not familiar with what I mean. Okay, we'll do it on this area because this area is really big, that petal's really big. So if I wanted to prime something, priming is when you take your lightest color and you fill in the area. Okay? Then you go in, then I go in with my darker color, get those shadows in there. And what this is doing is it's creating a wet area that's going to be easier to blend into. And it's useful in larger areas, or if you have colors that are tough to blend, like blues, purples, and reds. Those colors are difficult to blend. But like browns, greens, and yellows are easier to blend. I find if a color has a warmer undertone, it blends easier for whatever reason. It's like it doesn't stain the paper quite as quickly. These smaller pieces, I really don't think it's that necessary. It's so fun though. And you know, you could definitely grab a bunch of stencils, grab your pack of markers, and you could go put a movie on. You know, kids could be coloring their coloring books. You could be coloring your stamped images, or I should say your stencil images. But I like this is that you're not worried about staying in the lines here because you have that natural buffer of the stencil. So it just gives you that. You know, you're just worried about seeing how the colors blend, putting the inks together, picking colors. It just takes away a lot of that, that stress and worry. And you shouldn't be worried when you're coloring. You should be enjoying yourself, I think. So on the bigger petals, priming it will help for sure. Now some of these stencils have really small parts, so those will be a little challenging. Like if you've got a stencil with a really tiny area to get into, and that you just have to take the stencil off and fill in those areas when you after you've taken the stencil off when you're done. So that's how you would approach that. Look how fast this is though, because I'll do a little priming here. Like I like to use a chisel end a lot, so I do find that with a lot of these stencils I can't really get in with a chisel end. Add a little dimension there because there's like a little bump, so it looks like that's probably lifted up, so I want a shadow on either side of that. If you're enjoying the musical stylings of my daughter upstairs on her guitar. It's vacation week and it's like, I don't want to like, I don't know, let them do their thing, you know, they're making music. They're doing their thing. I don't want to discourage the arts in my household, even if it means there's stray guitar music in the back of my videos. And you can just keep adding until you've blended the color out as much as you want. That color will stay wet and will blend out and will work beautifully. This is probably pretty monotonous. You can actually do a couple at a time once you get fast at it. I just try to go back to the first one I did if I can remember. Sometimes I forget. Oops, gotta get a bit of a line there, but I think it'll dissolve out. See what I mean? It's kind of tough to get into some of those areas. And you might want to do that area inside a little bit darker instead of leaving it white. It's completely up to you. We'll see how it looks when we take off our stencil. And yeah, I'll just quickly prime that. Leaving these uncapped for a few minutes is not going to damage them. I know there's probably somebody out there freaking out like, oh my gosh, she's leaving her markers uncapped. That's horror. It'll be fine. The nice thing about alcohol markers is they don't wrinkle your paper even when you're really putting down a lot of color, and they don't seep under the stencil like watercolors might. Alright, now you can cap these up and we will take off our stencil. Look at that, 11 minutes. How do you color in that quick amount of time? I got a little line there, but maybe let me see if I can get that line to blend out a little bit better. There we go. I did have some pretty big jumps in these colors because I wanted some good contrast. Alright, so if you want to mask this like the macarons, ooh, that's really cute. That's just kind of cute the way it is, isn't it? If you wanted to mask this like the macarons, then you could just, I would tip it and just kind of like put it maybe like that and then start coloring. I'll show you how to do that, why not? Okay, so I'm just kind of put that over like that. And what I would do is I would refer to my swatch chart, because whenever you get some markers, you want to swatch them out. I swatch them out and then I put them in order if I can. So like these markers have a grid, a plastic grid in there that you could like work into a shelf or something if you want to make permanent storage. And I like that because once you put your markers in order, they will stay in order. I'm going to leave those up because I'm already using them. So I could be like, okay, I want a, let's see, what would be a color that would be pretty? Maybe a blue. I could do like 68 and 57. Maybe I'll just do a two color blend there. That would be pretty. And so what I would do would be, as I'm working around these guys, 68's the lighter one. I think I'll start with a darker one because I'll kind of work in the shadow here. And this one is underneath. So what I would do is keep them both uncapped because this is kind of a hard color to blend. Maybe just have this one all dark because we're right, there's hardly any of that showing next to that petal. It's easier than stamp masking because you can just see where you need to color and where you don't need to color. Now if there's some dry ink on the stencil, your other markers are going to pick it up, so kind of keep that in mind. So I probably would want to prime most of these for one reason, because I've only got two colors and there's quite a big jump there. And actually, I think I want to go with the broader end. Help it blend a little bit better because I can work a little quicker. The quicker you work, the easier it's going to blend. If you can get the marker in there. I'll zoom back in a little bit now that you've seen that. So those markers are the Art Beak markers. I'll link them down below. I don't think I'll do a full tutorial on them because they're, you know, they're kind of run-of-the-mill budget markers. They're a nice color selection. There's some good pastels in there, which I like. You know, if you have markers already, I would skip them, but if you don't have any markers and you're looking for an inexpensive set to get going, it is a nice color. It is a nice color arrangement, and it's very affordable, so I think I'll just do this petal here. And we can get on with our lives and see, just so you can kind of see the effect of the masking. I would take a little more time than this, but I mean, this is a pretty simple concept. I don't need to take all day with it. I know we'll have a big petal there, but it's fine. Let me cap these up though, because I am done coloring for now. Oh shoot! Forgot to put the middle in there. Okay, so then, you know, I would have colored the whole thing, and then I could go over there and put another one, or, you know, whatever, or I could put one right there and have, you know, that one be kind of in front. So then what you can do, if you want to, is you can go in with your darker color, and you can get rid of the lines and make it look a little bit more hand-drawn if you want to. You could bring that darker color into the center. You could even do that with a black pen if you want that to look a little bit more like dark veining. I'm being really sloppy. Take your time. Get rid of the white edges, either by going over it with the highlight color or going over it with the darker color. Then you get this kind of no-line coloring technique that's really popular. Or outline it with a pen if you prefer that. But yeah, the no-line coloring has been so popular. I actually like the lines in general. You know, you can give your own flair to the edges of the petals. You know, you do you. Do it however you like to do it. But it's just an idea on how you could use your, maybe I'll make this one big petal. It's got this crazy, weird, huge petal. But you get the drift. And then, you know, you could add more, do whatever you want, or you could use like a motif that's already put together and leave the lines. So if you want to look at the difference, that's that same flower with the lines. This one has the lines filled in. It's just whatever you like. There's a masking idea, but with the macarons, which I think works a little bit better. I don't know, I just really like that. And then, you know, more with adding the black lines. I could grab a pen and show you the black lines, why not? I'll grab a fairly thick pen just to, I got it right here. I'll use a 0.08, so you probably would want something a little bit thinner, but this will show up really well. And I would go in freehand. I wouldn't replace a stencil just because that gives you a lot more flexibility about how you want to do it. Yeah, I like doing the line work. Plus, it's also a great way to practice your drawing and your line work. Great way to practice your marker coloring, your blending. And it's a great way to, you know, find some focal points for your card making that are not as expensive or as large to store as stamps, because stamps take up storage space. They are, I'm going to turn that into a turned over petal. See, you can do stuff like that when you are kind of adding your own flair to it. So it went from a regular petal to a turned over petal. I like that. We could do that over here too. You know, so you get to use your own, you know, creative vibe. You could even draw like a leaf in there to match. You know, so you can start with a stencil, but then you end up doing your own thing. And then you could, if you're good at hand lettering, you could letter in something. I could just fill in the rest of this, so that little flower makes a little more sense. I could even make those petals a little bit longer so that it's a little bit more balanced. You just have fun with it and play around and practice. And there is my Frugal Friday tip for you today. Use stencils instead of stamps when you are making cards, because you probably have stencils, so why not use them? Because they're fun, right? I'm jiggling my camera. Sorry about that. That is all for today. And also swatch out your markers. Whatever set you have, whatever markers you have, write down the numbers, because it's going to help you when you go to choose colors, especially if the caps don't match perfectly, which I have yet to find the marker whose caps match perfectly. Even Copics aren't perfect matches. So, so keep those tips in mind and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good time crafting with stencils. Happy crafting!